found Christ, and they believe that it's possible to be Jewish and Christian at the same time. I'm Nancy Merrill. This is People Are Talking. Susan, before we do anything, I got your name right.
Correct.
Now, on this ad, let me get it right. It says, the Messiah has come and his name is, how do you pronounce it?
Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Correct.
Or forgive me, I said Yeshua. Yeshua. Now, help me with your name.
Tuvia. Like, was there one of you or...
Two of you. Okay. You're very kind. All right.
That's right. Some people call me trivia.
What was originally you were born in Toronto, is that right? Or your dad was born in Toronto?
Right. I came from California.
Okay, you came from California, but your name was not always Tuvia.
It wasn't always Tuvia Zaretsky.
Okay, what was it?
My father had changed his name from Abraham Zaretsky to Albert Carson at a time when there was a lot of anti-Semitism up in Canada. And I was born out in California with the last name Carson.
It's easier to pronounce if nothing else, Tuvia.
When I became a believer in Yeshua, in Jesus, I wanted to be known by the identity which I've always had as a Jew. And so I went back to the family name, Zaretsky, and I went to using my Hebrew name because nobody could pronounce my other former name when I was living in Israel. And so Tuvia was a very common name there, and that's the Hebrew name I was given as a baby.
Okay, I hope I can keep these names straight now. It is very, very confusing, and let us not make this whole discussion one of a theological discussion, because it will be very confusing, particularly to our viewers who don't have the scriptures at hand. But as simplistically as possible, can you explain to me, without, all the scriptures in front of me, why you believe you can be Christian and Jewish at the same time?
You want this in 20 words or less?
You got it.
Right. Well, first of all, we were born Jews. We'll die Jews. There's nothing that we can do to ever change that. God made us to be Jews. Only God can take that away from us. Believing in Jesus, however, is something apart from being born Jewish or being born a Gentile. All Gentiles aren't Christians, just as all Jews aren't Christians. But there are some of us, and we think a significant minority, who believe that Jesus is the promised Messiah of Israel for Jew and Gentile alike. And we continue to maintain our Jewish identity because Jesus never told us to stop being Jews by believing in him, just to turn from our sins and turn toward him.
You believe the Messiah is Jesus. Now, let me go back very slowly. As I understand in traditional Jewish belief, they believe the Messiah has not yet come. And in fact, most Jews believe he will come. And when he does come, in fact, he will tell us, he will bring peace. Is that not so?
Nancy, a lot of Jewish people hold to a proverb in the community, and that is where you have 3 Jewish people in discourse, you have 4 opinions floating around. Not every Jewish person is looking for a personal Messiah. But the Bible, as we look at it... But
in general, isn't a lot of the Jewish faith based on the fact that a Messiah will come, and when he comes, he will bring peace?
Sure, there's a belief that there is a Messiah.
Isn't there a belief that any Jewish boy who was born might be the Messiah?
Potentially, sure.
Okay.
I'm sure every Jewish mother would like that to be true.
I'm sure it would be. But let me tell you, I've been told that we had some technical difficulties in the very beginning, so for the benefit of our viewers, let me tell you that my guests here are members of an organization called Jews for Jesus. They placed this ad in the New York Times, which says the Messiah has come and his name is, don't tell me, Yeshua.
Good.
Which is the Hebrew name for Jesus.
It was in the Globe, too.
It was in the Globe and it was in Newsweek. These ads cost a lot of money. How much did this one cost? And Times ago, it's going to be very expensive.
I don't know.
Well, we got a very good price on our New York Times ad because we ran it on a standby basis and gave them a period of time in which to place it. And so we got it at half price.
What's half price?
About $10,000.
Yeah. Where are you getting money for your organization? The audience thinks that's a lot of money. Where did you get the money? Where are you raising money for your organization?
There are a lot of Christian people around this country, people who believe in Yeshua, who love our people, the Jewish people, who love our God and believe in what we're saying, who have contributed as individuals.
Now, I might add that these are Christians who are both Jewish and Gentile. And they think our work is important, so they individually contribute towards special projects like the Yeshua campaign.
Now, you said these are Christians. You also said, two of you, that there are Christians who give you money, who are not Jews.
No. When I say Christians, I'm including Jews and Gentiles who are Christians.
I think we should probably define some terms for you first.
I wonder if the viewers are having as difficult a time as I am in sorting this out.
Okay. A person is born Jewish, as a person is born as a non-Jew. No one is born a Christian. And this is where the confusion comes in. I mean, being born in a Jewish home makes you a Jew, but being born to Christian parents doesn't make you a Christian.
One of the ways that we say it is being born in a Christian home doesn't make you a Christian any more than being born in a bakery makes you a bagel.
It's not by association, but by personal decision to believe in Jesus
but by
Christ.
that definition, aren't you really making Jews just an ethnic group and not a religious group? Just as so-and-so is born Irish and his religion is Catholic because his parents are, but someone else is born Italian, but he's also Catholic because his parents were Catholic. Are you saying then Jews are a separate ethnic group, which we know they are, and you're separating that from Jews who are born and their parents teach them Judaism as a religion?
Well, you can't say that Judaism is a criteria for what makes somebody Jewish, because a little baby born without any beliefs at all yet is still considered to be a Jewish baby.
Well, then you've answered my question. I think probably the viewers would see the same thing. Let's talk about the man who is your leader. Is that the right word?
Chairman, leader.
Okay. His name is, oh, help me, Moshe? Moish Rosen. Yes. I have read about him that, in fact, he came from a traditional, perhaps even an Orthodox Jewish family, right, and later became a Baptist minister. What is he now? I mean, with that kind of background, having been born into and being born and brought up as a Jew, again, I'm having trouble with the definition.
Okay.
And he goes on and becomes a Baptist minister, and now he heads up this organization. Is he still a Baptist minister? That is your leader a Baptist minister?
And a Jew.
And a Jew.
You have to assume that he's been born a Jew, he's always going to be a Jew. He's not only ordained as a Baptist, I think he's been involved with at least one other denomination by way of ordination, and that's simply a way of credentialing him. But his credential was given to him by God as a Jew when he was born.
How does the traditional Baptist, or how do the traditional Baptist organizations react to him, and to your organization, for that matter?
Well, you're talking about Christians in general?
No, Baptist, and that's his training, yeah.
We're fairly well received by Baptists, by Lutherans, by Presbyterians that believe Jesus is the Messiah and that he's for everyone.
I think any evangelical Christian who holds to basically the same things that we believe would welcome us as brothers and sisters.
So you would call yourself then an evangelical Christian / Jewish organization. Are you a religion?
I don't think I'm very religious, are you?
No, I don't think we're a religion. Jews for Jesus is more of a movement.
It's a relationship
within evangelical Christianity.
I want to ask you, because in most of the pictures I've seen of your organization, you're wearing T-shirts with very large letters saying Jews for Jesus. Why is it that you didn't wear that today?
Well, you've been announcing on the air that Jews for Jesus was going to come, so we didn't have any problems thinking that people would not know who we are. On the streets, we wear our T-shirts that say Jews for Jesus.
Not in January.
Well, true. But it's a means of identifying ourselves, and those who want to take our literature know who they're getting it from.
I understand. Okay. You have brought a guitar with you, and explain to me the significance of the song you're about to sing.
Okay. We wrote music to express our faith in Yeshua in a Jewish idiom. And the song I'm going to sing was some of the words taken from something Jesus said to a Jewish leader who came to him and acknowledged him as rabbi. And he said, "What do you want from us, Yeshua?" And he said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have life everlasting, have life everlasting, have life everlasting." He said 30 seconds.
Okay. I've kind of lost the significance of that.
He was referring to a passage in the Old Testament in which one of the Jewish prophets said that God would come and provide a whole new life by a washing of forgiveness and the infusing of a new spirit for a new way to live, a power that God gave to...
And the music is what you consider Christian music?
It's Jewish music about Jesus.
See, Jewish music primarily is in a minor key, and the idiom is Jewish. Someone listening to it will recognize it as a Jewish melody. But the lyrics distinctly talk about the fact that we believe that Jesus is the promised Messiah. And that's why we call it Jewish gospel music.
Okay, we're taking a break, and when we come back, we have a rabbi and a Lutheran minister who are rather strong critics of your movement. We'll be right back after these messages. Joining me now is Rabbi Richard Yellen. He is the rabbi with Mishkan Tefillah, the temple in Newton, and sitting next to him, Pastor Robert Greasy, pastor of the Lutheran Church of the Newtons in Newton. Gentlemen, did you know each other before you came on the show?
Good friends.
Oh, all right, great. I was going to introduce you, but explain to me your problem is untheologically speaking with Jews for Jesus, the organization.
Well, I have a good relationship with many Christian clergymen. We have a common language of discourse. We have a trust. It's built up over a period of many years, many experiences. And what's unique about the relationship is that we love each other's creative differences. We love to learn about the differences of one another because we've all shared in a common mosaic in society. And so when you see people who use words that we've always used over these years, and they're using them differently, it's discombobulating. It's the same thing, perhaps, when you go to an Iron Curtain country and all of a sudden you hear they're using the word democracy. We've already used it, but they've taken the word and they've taken it out of context.
Let's be a little more specific, Rabbi. Specifically, what is it that you disagree with? They say that you can be Christian and Gentile at the same time.
Jewish.
I'm sorry, you see all these terminology. Christian and Jewish at the same time. You don't think that's possible?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Number one, Jews have always believed that, as you said on your opening, that anyone can be a leader, anyone can make this world a better place to live, that there's an equality and there's a common denominator that all human beings share with one another. And to make one person, one personality, charismatic, I think distorts what Judaism speaks of.
Well, and I'm still confused with you. Do you believe that the Messiah has yet to come to earth?
Every Saturday night after the Sabbath is over, when we're together with families in the community and there's a lot of love, and we all feel good about this inner love that we have, we sing, and I wish I could sing as beautifully as Tuvia. By the way, my name is Richard, which is a Christian name, and his name is Tuvia, which is a Jewish name. So we have to be careful about labels. They're confusing. But every Saturday night...
That's an understatement, Rabbi. Go ahead.
Every Saturday night, I sing Eliyahu HaNavi. I'm welcoming the Messiah, because I believe that because of the Sabbath day, when people feel love, maybe the week ahead is going to be a little bit better.
So in answer to my question, you do believe that the Messiah has yet to come?
Yes,
All right.
Waiting
They
eagerly.
believe that the Messiah has come, and in fact, it was Jesus.
Well, they can believe what they want. Judaism doesn't stand on its beliefs. It stands on its actions.
Let me go on next to
I have a little
Pastor
different
Greasy.
problem
Yes.
in terms of what Richard was saying. I come from a background which has, over the years, been sensitized to anti-Semitic concepts. I'm mightily aware of how the church has taught a teaching of contempt. I find that when the church begins to interpret scriptures in a certain way, they emphasize in such a way that anti-Semitism becomes a hidden agenda on the Christian gospel. When I find the two of you coming together and saying you're both Jews and Christians, and the kinds of things that I've read about you, it seems to reinforce that teaching of contempt, that teaching of anti-Semitism, by wiping out Judaism as it is today.
I think that's an insidious comparison. To talk about us in terms of anti-Semitism, we are Jews who love our people and love much about Judaism where it is in line with the scriptures. Can I ask Pastor Greasy a question?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you believe in the bodily, fleshly resurrection of Jesus Christ?
I sure do.
You do. Do you believe that Jesus came and he died for the sins of mankind, and Jew and Gentile alike need to receive him in order to have eternal life?
I believe that Jesus is my Savior.
Can you answer yes or no to my question, though?
Why must I answer yes or no?
Because I think you're
leading
fudging.
to a syllogism.
No, I think you're fudging. I don't think that you really have a true Christian conviction, or you wouldn't be sitting where you are.
Oh, no, that's just as
I can
serious as what
understand.
you
No,
said
I can understand why the rabbi feels the way he does, but I have no understanding of why a Christian minister could sit here, and say something like that about Jews for Jesus, where we're believing in Jesus Christ as the Messiah and Savior of the world, something that a Lutheran minister should be upholding.
I would say the most anti-Semitic thing that could happen on the part of a Christian is if they refuse to take the gospel to my Jewish people. That would be truly anti-Semitic.
Agreed.
Refuse to take the gospel to the Jewish people.
If you believe that Jesus is the promised Messiah and Savior of the world, and you withhold that from a Jew,
well, by that very
then that's being
definition, the
anti-Semitic.
rabbi who has not taken your gospel to his people, because I've actually read material he sent us that he is warning his people, his congregation, in fact, that Jews for Jesus are out there. I've seen the material you sent us. So clearly, by your definition, in that he has not given the gospel to his followers, are you saying he's anti-Semitic?
We're saying that on the part of Christians, the most anti-Semitic thing that could happen would be for them to refuse to take the good news of Yeshua, the Messiah. If he's the Messiah, and we believe that he is, if they refuse to take that to our people, then that certainly is anti-Semitism. Either it says the gospel isn't any good, or it says the Jewish people aren't any good.
You're going to have a hard time to be getting most people to believe that a rabbi such as Rabbi Yellen, with his reputation, is anti-Semitic.
Well,
but by the same term, you're having a hard time believing what the Lutheran minister here has told us as well, that he believes you're anti-Semitic.
Nancy, I think there's something invidious to some degree. When we call people Jewish Christians, what I think this is a double notion of superiority. On the one hand, they're affirming the fact that race is really important and that the original race of religious people were Jews. So they want that. They want this originality of this origin of superiority. On the other hand, they're coming with a Christian message, and I don't want to get into a disputation with Christians. I respect their differences. But when they say they're Christians as well, so they've taken the Jewish superiority of race, supposedly, and melded that with Christianity, which is supposedly taken over from Judaism. So they're superior on two accounts.
I don't know, we think of ourselves as inferior on all accounts. That's why we need Jesus.
I really believe as a Jew that other people are just as good as me, that you can do whatever you want, you can believe whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, but don't raise havoc in society. I watched at Coolidge Corner people throwing broadsides. You know what broadsides are? That's the term Jews for Jesus and Moshe Rosen used for the literature, Susan, that you prepared. Well, I wanted to know how you use broadside. I found it. I'm only someone who's coming academically to the subject.
What
but
you're
I've seen people
advertising is what you're
advertising, throwing it in the faces of people, taking little old ladies and pushing it in their faces.
That is just a lie.
We've seen it. We've seen it happen.
Name calling.
The Anti-Defamation League, Susan, has documented cases of that sort, going into Jewish old age homes.
Do you have the documentation with you?
Yes, I have it. I brought a whole stack here, and I'll share it with you. I have a couple broadsides for you.
May I interrupt you for a moment? We have here a document from the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York City, in which they say, despite its misleading name, that is Jews for Jesus, many of us are aware that Jews for Jesus is a professional missionary organization whose avowed purpose is the conversion of Jews.
That we're professional is true. That we're missionaries is true.
And is it true that your main purpose is the conversion of Jews?
The purpose of my work and our work is simply to raise the issue that Yeshua is the Messiah and he's come. And anybody, Jew or Gentile, can join that issue and make their own mind up.
But would you agree with what they claim is your purpose, that you were trying to convert Jews?
No, that's God's work.
We can't do any converting of anybody.
We're taking a break. We'll be right back after these messages. As we went into the break, I questioned whether or not you, in fact, were trying to convert Jews, and I didn't really get an answer.
The work of conversion is the work of God. It's a work that takes place in a person's heart.
Are you helping that work of God?
Our job is simply to make the issue known, and we're doing it in a way that our Jewish people can hear.
Do you go right into temples and give your literature out in temples?
We only go where we're invited and where it's a public thoroughfare where anyone is invited. And we only hand our literature out to people and talk to people and go into the homes of people who have invited us in.
But it's not always done honestly, because a friend of mine whose name was Rabbi Martin Edelman in Long Island had a group who appealed to him to run a Havdalah service, and he thought it was a wonderful idea because they presented the credentials as a group of Jews. They came in and they made their presentation, and the end was an appeal for converts.
That's not Jews
What
for
kind
Jesus.
of service, Rabbi?
A Havdalah service. At the end of the Sabbath day. We say goodbye to the Sabbath and look forward to the week ahead.
Tova says that's not true.
And no one affiliated with Jews for... We don't even have a branch on Long Island.
That would lack integrity, and we don't do things like that.
The Long Island Council of Churches in 1977 came up with a statement deploring Jews for Jesus.
This is a red herring. They keep bringing
60.
this up. When the case went to court, the Long Island Council of Churches admitted that they had made an opinion without ever having seen our literature or interacted with the people, and they withdrew their charge without ever making a retraction of the paper.
And yet the Jewish community continues to bring that up over and over again.
This is a smelly red herring.
May I please? Do you believe that Jews have a valid covenant with God?
Which one are you talking about? There are several covenants.
Of course, the Abrahamic covenant. Is that a valid covenant?
Certainly. God promised that he was going to create a people. Right. And that through that people he was going to bring a blessing to all the nations, and the blessing is Yeshua the Messiah.
Has that been revoked?
Yeshua the Messiah came. That covenant couldn't possibly have been revoked.
That's not the way Jews understand that blessing to the nations. It's Magen Avraham. You speak a little Hebrew.
I read what the Bible says.
It says, Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham. Blessed are you, God, shield of Abraham, not shield of Jesus. How do you explain this booklet you put out?
While you were in Israel, as I know you, how many years were you in Israel?
Just under 2.
What were you doing there?
I was studying Hebrew, I was working on a kibbutz, I was studying historical geography in the Bible.
My question is, are there any Jews for Jesus in Israel or in any foreign countries right now?
The very first church I ever went to in my life was called the Kehilat Meshechit Yisraelit. That means the Messianic Assembly of Israel. The first church I ever went to, we sang in Hebrew, we spoke in Hebrew, we prayed in Hebrew. They were all Israeli Jews, and there were about, 15?
15 congregations now in Israel.
Of Jews for Jesus. Right.
Of Jews who believe in Jesus.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, let's make a distinction here. You're saying they're Jews who believe in Jesus, but do they call themselves Jews for Jesus as you do?
In Hebrew, they would call themselves Yehudim Mishachim, which means Messianic Jews or Jewish Christians or Jews for Jesus.
What other countries?
Oh, well,
England,
all over. English-speaking countries in particular. South Africa.
And this movement all started with Moshe Rosen.
No, it started with Jesus back in Jerusalem in 32 AD.
See, it's a 2,000-year-old movement. You have to understand that.
But Moshe Rosen...
Shall we say that the present leader is Moshe Rosen?
Present leader is...
And he started it how many years ago?
Well, he began in terms of getting us together as a group in the early 70s.
Okay, phone question for you. Go ahead, please. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, ma'am. We can hear you.
Yes, I would like to know why these two young people do not convert to Christianity and give up their so-called, their Jewish affiliation.
You've probably heard that question before.
Sure. Conversion was never to the church. It was never to another religion. Conversion is something that God does in a person's heart. That means to turn away from sin, away from an orientation towards basic self-interest, and a conversion toward God, a life oriented toward Him. So, if I've made any turn, it was away from my basic self-interest and an interest toward God Himself.
May I ask you a question in interpreting her question? Again, are you consider yourself a Jew in the ethnic sense, as an Italian considers themselves Italian in the ethnic sense, and Jewish as a secondary religious aspect? Are you following me? And therefore, are you comfortable in a temple right now, as you are in a Baptist church?
We would be comfortable in a temple if we were allowed to attend. You know, oftentimes the charge is leveled at us that we left Judaism. We didn't want to be part of our people. Well, I attended a congregation, conservative, back in Marin County where I lived, congregation Kol Shafar, where Jacob Milgram was then the rabbi. And I attended faithfully. I did not make an issue of my faith, though I let the rabbi know from the start what I believed, so he wouldn't think that I was there under any false pretenses. I continued attending there very faithfully,
and what happened?
Enjoying the worship, until the president of the congregation, Mr. Margolis, and the cantor as well, decided that they did not want a missionary to the Jews in their congregation, even though I did not speak of my faith within the walls of the synagogue, nor did I encourage any discussion unless someone asked me.
Why do you think then they didn't want you there, if in fact you weren't spreading the word?
Because of the intimidation that comes from the Jewish community for having a Jew for Jesus.
Why are they intimidated by your presence? I don't really understand.
No, they're not intimidated by my presence. They're intimidated by rabbis like Rabbi Yellen.
Come to Michigan to Phil on Shabbos, Susan. We would love to have you and make you feel welcome. We'll embrace you. I brought some members of my congregation. Look, they're smiling. They have love in their hearts.
If in fact she came to your temple, what would you consider her? Would you consider her a Christian?
She can be anything she wants. I got people who believe all kinds of strange things.
But what would you consider her right now? Hearing all kinds of what?
They believe all kinds of strange things.
But what would you consider her right now, having heard what she says? Would you consider her a Christian?
It's not my task, Nancy, to define her. I don't have to define her. She can define herself the way she wants.
But the rabbis already
I disagree with you. I think you're avoiding the question, Rabbi, because in terms of educating somebody, if you have to, and she comes to you and says, I want to be converted, Rabbi, you've got to know what her beliefs were so you know what to convert her from and to.
I'm prepared to talk about the beliefs. I talk about beliefs in Christianity and Jesus with Pastor Robert Greasy all the time. We have free discussions. I want to know how come they put out a booklet that says how to witness.
Seems to be the same thing as separation between church and state.
What do you mean?
You keep Jesus on your side of the street, and I'll keep my religion on my side of the street, but nobody preaches what Jesus meant or the love that he brought. So he's calling it a strange thing. Can you enhance
so what you're saying is you don't see any problem with somebody saying that
loving the message that Jesus Christ brought? How could anybody see a problem with it? And why is it being propagated instead of argued? And why is it being brought together in a coalition and loved even more and brought out to everybody?
I'm not making the confrontation,
Reverend
Nancy.
Greasy, why don't you speak to that?
I think it's because of the fact that they insist on being Jewish and Christian at the same time. I think that if you are converted by God in your terms, you are Christian.
What did you say, sir?
Jesus was Jewish.
Accepting Jesus as your Savior.
Yeshua,
you are no longer
Jesus
Jewish.
is Jewish. Love is of everybody.
Yeah, hi. First let me say, just for the sake of a point of reference, I'm the leader of Congregation Ruach Israel in Newton, which is a congregation of Jewish believers in Jesus. And so from that perspective, let me just say that, well, two things. Number one, and I appreciate the rabbi's perspective here, there is a broad range of beliefs held within the Jewish community, surprisingly broad to the outsider. For example, in Deerfield, Illinois, there's a congregation called Beth Or, which is a synagogue of humanist Jews, that is, Jews who deny the existence of God, period. And yet they consider themselves Jews, have a synagogue, etc. Naturally, there's been some flack, but surprisingly, they have been accepted as a viable Jewish option.
What is your point, sir?
My point is that to out of hand say that the apparent inconsistencies between a Jew for Jesus and the terminology and the difficulties there must lead us to the conclusion that there cannot be such a thing really does not, number one, fit the realities of history, because the earliest believers in Jesus were all Jews who saw themselves with a dual identity as members of what's called the body of Messiah, or the group of all believers, and also members of the Jewish community. And number two...
Is it not true that there is just as wide a variety of belief within the Christian church?
That may be, but I'm not sure if that's germane to my point here.
What is your point?
Number two is that since there is this breadth of perspective, I find it difficult to understand why there should be so much trouble with Jews who happen to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, even if they do seek to propagate their views by handing out pamphlets. I mean, political people, political candidates do that naturally, and I have a strange feeling that you two, and although we're not in the same organization or anything like that, but I have a feeling you two also deplore any kind of surreptitious activities and would be happy to right them if you found them in your midst. But, and as you folks feel as well, all right, let's get past that. We all would deplore that kind of thing.
You know what? You had me believing, I am so confused now, that you were actually giving me a Hebrew definition of Jews for Jesus.
Well,
the point that I'm picking up is that you're saying there are a lot of disparate groups within Christianity, within organized Christian churches and within Jewish communities.
Very much so. Very much so. There should be room in the side.
And this is just one of them, and you're another. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I believe that
we're taking a break. We'll come right back. There's a phone call waiting for you. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, I'd like to know if the Jews for Jesus celebrate the Jewish holidays, like Yom Kippur and...
Yeah. For that matter, we could ask them if they celebrate the Christian holidays as well, right?
Yeah, and especially I'd like to know if their Baptist minister leader celebrates the Jewish holidays.
Sure. Good questions.
In several places, we've helped establish congregations of Jewish people who want to believe in Yeshua. And we celebrate Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. We celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. We celebrate Sukkot. We celebrate Shavuot. We celebrate Passover.
Do you celebrate Christmas?
We celebrate Christmas. We celebrate
we have
Easter.
A lot of holidays.
It's great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Tell me, how do you celebrate them? I did see some of the material that you sent us, and where you try to equate, try to get this right, matzah with taking Passover and many of the traditions of Passover and equating that with. Do you remember the material I'm referring? Yes.
It's in reference to the Passover, and it's in reference to an activity that takes place among Christians called communion, which comes right out of the Jewish Passover. Jesus used the matzah and said, "This bread is my body," and it was to be something that his followers would do to remember that his body was given for them.
Well, now it's coming back to me. In fact, I remember exactly. It says, "This is a pickle. It is kosher." It's your material. It said, "This is matzah. This is kosher. This is used at Passover." Then it went on to explain how you as Jews for Jesus would take matzah and explain the existence of the Trinity.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what material you're talking about, but basically it's not original with us to look at the matzah and at the wine as the elements that Jesus used. The rabbi talked about the fact that we take Jewish symbols and distort them. Well, if we distort them, so does Jesus Christ, for he took these symbols and referred to himself in them.
Okay.
And we're only
maybe I should show you this
example.
material. This is the one. There's the pickle.
Oh yeah, kosher for Passover.
Is that your material?
Sure.
That is your material.
That's a broadside.
This is the type of thing that Reverend Yellen is talking about?
This is an evangelistic tract that we hand out on the street corners.
Nancy, the purpose of these things is simply to raise an issue so that people can at least hear about it in a cultural context that they understand, and then can
I think it's more than
dig
raise
into
an
it if
issue.
they want to.
It's to raise a conversion issue, isn't it?
It's to raise the issue of Yeshua. Those who want to do whatever they want to do with it can do whatever they want to do with it.
But you know, it seems to me when I read this now that much of your aim seems to me not to be really at Jews. Why would you have to, if you're into converting Jews to your way of thinking, why would you have to explain what matzah are? Matzah are striped and pierced wafers of unleavened bread. I know that, and I'm not Jewish. I think everybody knows that.
No, you live in Boston, so you know that. But if you lived in some other parts of the country, you'd have no idea. And the point is that our message, the message of salvation in Yeshua, Jesus, is not one that's exclusively for Jews. God has made that message available and open, an option to all the Gentiles of the world,
Are
too.
you finding your message more readily receivable in Bible Belt areas, such as the Midwest, the South, or more fundamentalist movements? Are you more readily accepted there?
I don't know if we know where it's received the best.
Well, she just made a comment that I live in Boston, so I know what matzah is, but someone in the Midwest mightn't.
We've had Yeshua ads like the one you read in newspapers all across the country. And I would say that the largest response has come from the major urban areas: New York, Chicago, Boston, Miami, Los Angeles, key cities with large Jewish populations.
Let me add another confusing element here: Catholicism. Father Philip LaPlante is with us. It's nice to see you again, Father.
Thank you very much.
Let's get some things very simplistic here. Catholics believe that Jesus Christ was a Jewish.
And he's the Messiah, and he's the divine head of the Christian church. And I admire the zeal here and the enthusiasm of these young people, but I find the theology, the little I know, very confusing, very misleading.
Misleading in what sense?
In the sense that are they Christians? Are they Jewish? Is this is this a religion? Is this a movement? Of course, it's unfair to ask you so much in one.
No, we can answer very quickly. Yes, yes, and yes, yes.
I forgot what I asked in the beginning.
So did I. I'm glad to know that you're confused as well.
I am, and I think it will lead to that because they believe they got high into so many fires that so far that I'm confused.
Are you confused about their purpose, their motivation?
No, the motivation is great. If we had all Christians and all Jews that zealous, it goes somewhere. But I think their movement, whatever it is confusing to me at this time.
Let me ask you. Let me take this a little bit further here. He said he's not confused about what you want out of the movement. Do you have anything besides your religious beliefs that members of your organization agree to? That is, are you an organization that also doesn't allow drinking or smoking? Do you, you're smiling, but I don't really know. Until I saw the ad in the New York Times, I'd never heard of Jews for Jesus. Are you an organization that has certain beliefs about food? I mean, I've read this material about unleavened bread. But
anything we can get our hands on.
All right, so in that sense, no. You drink, you smoke. I'm not going to go any further than that.
We don't let me put it this way. We don't have rules other than our statement of faith. Those that are part of Jews for Jesus are members of mainline congregations and messianic congregations, and there are certain rules and regulations within these bodies, but we are not an authority to those that are part of Jews for Jesus. We don't require...
So you're not a religious organization.
We're not a religion.
You're not a religion.
Well, Nancy,
we're
I
a
have
movement
two
to raise
documents in
the
my
issue
hand that I'd like to raise, if you will. They put out an article called "What Evangelical Christians Should Know About Jews for Jesus." This is a confidential report. It's not to be distributed to non-Christians or Jews.
How'd you get it, Rabbi?
Well, I think the American Jewish Committee found it. It was given to them by Christians who are friends of the Jewish community.
Nancy, you should know we granted about 400,000.
When we come back, we will go right into that. All right, we're taking a break. We'll be right back. I've just moved over to the side aisle because during the break, some of our audience identified themselves as having gone to Columbia University and to BU. And can you tell me your experience with Jews for Jesus when you were at Columbia?
Yes, I found them all over the campus. They weren't giving material just to people who wanted to have it. They were stuffing material on the faces of people who didn't want to have it. They used to come chasing down the main aisle of Columbia University with this material. They weren't willing to just leave us alone, especially when they saw a large group of observant Jews.
How did they know you were Jewish?
Because we were very often walking with boys who were wearing kippot on their heads.
Mm-hmm. What's your reaction to them? What do you think their motivation is?
My reaction is very negative because I think that they prey on the most vulnerable people in the country.
Who are the most vulnerable?
People on college campuses who are in the middle of searching for many different things. And I don't think that they just go to people who want to hear from them. I think that they go to people who are willing to hear from just about anybody and are at a very vulnerable stage and willing to accept just about anything.
You, ma'am, are shaking your head up and down, also at Columbia.
I totally agree. Right now I'm at Columbia University, and not only do I see them accosting people, distributing their flyers, but I also see them littering incredibly throughout New York City. You see all over the place, you see the Jews for Jesus pamphlets.
Let me ask you, though, if you've seen those flyers, have you seen the one that I showed just a few minutes ago with the pickle on it?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Because that clearly was not designed to attract people who... clearly, to me, it was designed for non-Jews. Because you have to explain matzah to a Jew. I mean, you've got a serious problem in the beginning. Are you a Jew?
Yes, I am Orthodox Jew.
All right. How did you react to the material?
I don't take it. I throw it back at them, and I I just totally think that it's not for me.
When you were at Columbia, did you notice them, you say that they shoved the material actually in people's faces. Did you see them doing it to people who were clearly non-Jewish, that is Christians?
I really couldn't tell if someone was non-Jewish.
Well, I asked her that, and I said, she said they knew that she was Jewish because she was walking with boys.
Right, if a boy's wearing a yarmulke on his head, then you could tell he's Jewish, but otherwise, I mean...
Well, did you... So you have no idea whether it was aimed at everybody?
Right.
All right. You were at BU. You were.
Yeah, I was at BU, and I think the same experience was true. And
can I ask who these people were who were shoving it in your faces? Were they students who believe in Jews for Jesus?
It was a student organization on campus.
On campus.
Yeah. And I think people do have a right to express anything they want. I think it's the manner in which it's expressed.
Yes, how is it expressed?
And forcing it on people, throwing it in their faces, and I think looking for arguments with people. Students who don't have the answers, who maybe should go to a rabbi to find answers, go to other Jewish people to find the answers, but the answers that they're getting from the Jews for Jesus are answers that don't fit into Jewish practices.
But somebody might argue with you and say, look, if you're old enough to go to college, you're old enough to make up your mind about religion, this is a free country.
You are.
The Moonies give out material on college campuses.
Yeah, I'd like to know what differentiates you from any other cult on campus.
Well, first of all, I just got through working in New York City for 3 years, and that wasn't Jews for Jesus on campus because we're not registered on campus. We stand out on the main
BU,
the main
at
road.
Boston University.
She's saying BU. She's the BU student.
Still off campus. We're not on campus at BU either.
The point is whether you're registered or not is the way
if people were
it's
doing
done.
that sort of thing, I wouldn't feel very good about it either. God didn't shove something down my throat. I don't intend to do that with anybody else either.
And we don't litter. If there's any littering, it's people like you throwing the pamphlets on the ground.
Or back in people's faces.
What's your problem, sir?
Well, I'm at MIT, and I was involved with the Hillel Foundation there, which is a Jewish students organization. And in addition to having the Jews for Jesus on Massachusetts Avenue giving out literature almost continually for about 3 months, we had one of the members of the organization who was an MIT student who joined Hillel and started taking classes with us and did this really only to get to know the people in the classes so he could go and convert them or try to convert them afterwards.
His name is Ralph Jaffone. He was the only student who was over at the campus 3 months. One guy's got a good reputation if you raise that big an issue. But he joined Hillel because he's a Jew, and he was thrown out of Hillel because he wants to believe in Yeshua. And he didn't join to go in there and be subversive. He didn't make it an issue.
He didn't get thrown out of Hillel because I was the president of the organization
He had to sign something that said that he would never even talk about his faith, which he hadn't made an issue before.
He didn't sign anything at all. You've got your facts very, very mistaken.
I happen to know Ralph, and I've seen the things that he signed. What can I tell you?
He didn't sign anything. He was
Can I ask you, because we don't know who this gentleman is, would you say that everyone who was distributing the Jews for Jesus material were college-age kids?
No.
Were there older ones?
Yes.
How old?
That's hard to say. I mean...
30, 40, 50, 60, 70,
upper
80?
20s, 30s.
Yeah, but they're young. Clearly college or graduate school age kids. Adults.
But not students. Certainly not students at MIT.
Right. What I want to ask is, do you have any breakdown on your demographics in terms of,
Well, we recently completed a study of Jewish believers in Jesus across the country, and from the sampling that we took, the age range for most of the Jewish believers was between the ages of 25 and 45. This is the bulk being around in the mid-30s.
Do you believe that if a Jew who has a covenant relationship with God does not accept Jesus, that he will be saved?
Pastor, the Bible teaches that anybody who has not turned from their sin and embraced faith in Yeshua is in a position in jeopardy from God.
So
a person who chooses their condition. If a person doesn't want Yeshua, they don't want Jesus, they're not going to have him. And a person who does want him is going to get to know him. And the Bible's the way to know him.
We'll come right back after these messages. Excuse me. Rabbi Yellen has given me the material that he referred to earlier, which he says is really contraband. You shouldn't have had this, but you managed to get a hold of it.
I'm guilty. I've sinned.
All right. In it, there is a section, it's called The Approach, and it says, this is information you're saying for Jews for Jesus to go out and convert.
Yeah, how you reach out to Jews and bring them into
One of the things
their
it
fold.
does say, if you want to witness to someone whom you do not know, form a friendship first. It is possible to build a foundation of a lasting friendship in as little as 5 minutes of pleasant conversation. Let your Jewish friend know that you like him as a person. If it takes all of the time when you first meet the individual to cultivate a friendship, it will not be time wasted. Does this bother you?
Oh, sure. It's a missionary approach. It's not truth in advertising. You come across with Jewish symbols.
Tula agrees. You said it's a missionary approach.
It is a way to help Gentiles who don't know a lot about Jewish people to establish a real relationship. I would be very uncomfortable with somebody who wanted to relate to my Jewish people and who was fumbling and not really understanding how to relate.
Does the word missionary, though, when the rabbi uses the word missionary in describing your movement, does that bother you?
No, not at all. The word missionary means sent one, and we feel that we fit the bill.
They say we consider ourselves an arm of the local church. It's here in black and white, and this document's only meant for non-Christians. It's not meant for Jews.
We agree. All right, we're almost out of time. I'm down to about 20 seconds just to add a little more confusion. We have here another reverend, another Lutheran reverend, sir. Your name is?
Robert Clem of Topsfield, Our Savior Lutheran Church.
And the bottom line is I have about 4 seconds. You have no problems with Jews for Jesus.
Jews are strange, and that's what makes it so beautiful, to see the love of God and the love of Christ.
And your fellow pastor up there disagrees. I'm going to have to invite you all back again. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Please come back tomorrow.